This episode of Palmetto Primetime is brought to you by Jennifer Blanchard, a financial planner with Commonwealth Financial Group, who specializes in working with business owners, individuals, and families to help them plan for a secure financial future. Reach out to her today. Visit www.commonwealthfg.com.
Welcome to Palmetto Primetime with Sarah A. Ford and Mandy Powers Norrell, where every week they will be talking about social justice issues. And now, here's Sarah and Mandy.
Mandy and I met in around 2018, I believe, and right away I was blown away by her incredible instincts as a journalist, and what a phenomenal storyteller she was and is. She developed relationships with sources that were unparalleled because of her deep caring and understanding of victims' issues. And we're just so honored today to have Mandy Matney join us on Palmetto Primetime. Thank you so much for being here, Mandy.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. I think I had a question.
You did, yeah.
Yes.
For both of you, what is the one thing about our system in South Carolina? If you could change one thing about the justice system in South Carolina, what would it be?
Equal access. Since I've been prosecuting on a contract basis in Lancaster, I see these people who, could get their records clean if they had just $700 to do PTI, which is PreTrial Intervention. But because they don't have the money to do PTI, they're going to have to they're going to have a record. There's so much, we see, I'm a big fan of the public defenders. They do a phenomenal job, but they're so overworked. Today we had pleas, and one of the defendants who pled, the judge asked him if he had been able to have enough time with his lawyer, and he said, "My lawyer's a public defender. I met him today." And the public defender did a wonderful job for him, but he's handling hundreds of cases. And so your access to justice has so much to do with your ability to pay. And that's what I would change.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Public defenders are amazing. That was my first job out of law school, and it was the best job. I think it makes me a better lawyer. I think it makes me a better person from doing that job. I think I'm going to just piggyback off of that with equal access to justice in general, but in particular for crime victims. Often we forget that, but for what happened to that victim, none of this would be happening. And our system, pushes our victims out from the center. And I think our system needs to become more victim centric. It's very defendant centric. And that makes sense because defendants are the ones that could go to prison because of what they've been accused of. But victims really need to be at the center because all of this happened because of the victimization that they endured. And, victims' rights are not, a to-do list and you say, oh, I said that, check, or I did this, check. But we really need to integrate that more openly into our system and engaging with victims, not treating victims as an afterthought or something that we're supposed to say, well, you have a right to be here, and not explaining what's happening or not giving them the equal opportunity and understanding that we give to defendants. That's what I would change. But obviously, I'm a little biased because of what I do.
It is crazy though. It's like with journalism, a lot of people, they're like, I love how you put victims first. And it's like, shouldn't that be just the way, that the whole system is designed? And that like journalists center their stories around victims and are kind to victims because they do not deserve anything less. The court system should be kind to victims and put them at center, but it's just not like that. And and what Mandy said, like, God, I didn't even think that. What is it called? A pretrial intervention,
right?
That but also bond. I mean, the amount of times that I have checked, we have a jail log in Beaufort County, and I used to check it all the time when I was a crime reporter. And the littlest things that people were in jail for over 30 days, like walking on a highway. I've seen that. What is that exactly? Bounce checks, like things that are just so tiny and not violent at all. People are in jail for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days because they just don't have, like you said, $500 or anybody in their circle with $500, and that is just wrong. And it's horrible. And then on the flip side of that, there's like a super violent offender
who could afford
yeah,
bond.
right, and they give him a PR bond. It's like
Right.
yeah, and I mean, I think it's just really tricky because of course there's never going to be a system that's completely fair, and we all know that, but I think that we could do a little better about balancing it between rich. It should not be a system designed where the rich can get away with everything, and the poor people have to literally be imprisoned and then lose their job. It's literally a trap of poverty. And a lot of people don't realize that. I know you guys know that, but it's like they are in jail for a few days. What happens? Like they lose their job and then they can't pay rent. And then what do they have to do? They have to go back to crime because they don't feel like there's any option. And it's horrible.
It is. It's like the cycle of domestic violence where people don't understand, why does the victim continue to go back? And it's like, our system is not built to support those people. You know, you think about, it's not just always about bruises, but it's about financial control and coercion and just all of these different things that go into it, which would make a victim go back to an abuser. And it's a cycle. And Mandy, I know that you know that because now you're prosecuting those cases, and it's tough.
Every one I had today, the victims were asking that the defendant get bond or that their charges be dropped because they were financially dependent on the defendant. And some of them were, legit, and it had gone in, gotten drug and alcohol abuse counseling and was clean, and now he's ready to re-enter their lives. But so many of these victims, I mean, it's such a complex onion. There's it's not just black and white. We've got a lot of people who we want them to call 911 when they're being beat up, so we've got to kind of honor their wishes if they don't act like we want victims to act when the time comes to prosecute.
Right. And the whole concept of a housewife is unfortunately designed to victimize women and to trap them in it's financial the perfect system. It's financial dependence and abuse, and make them feel like they don't have, because if you're a housewife, what are your options? And I have a lot of friends who are housewives. It's a very respectable, and I love it when it's completely a choice. I believe that all women should be able to do it. And God, we need more people raising good babies in this world. So it's super important. I don't want anybody to feel like I'm knocking it, but it can just completely trap you because a lot of them are left without an education, without any sort of work experience. And any ability to get on their feet by themselves. So it's a huge part that nobody ever talks about. But instead they talk about, why would she leave? Why doesn't she leave? And it's like, wow.
Complex for that. Yeah.
Right. And why is he abusing her?
Yeah, let's start there. Let's not victim blame. Let's start maybe with the
other side of that. Yeah.
Right, and that never happens. It's always.
It's one of those things that if we didn't, you have to have an outlet, because otherwise, you just feel like you're banging your head against the wall constantly. But it's always incredible when you meet victims, with Stephen Smith's mom. I know that, she has just been an incredible advocate for her son and is really, bonded with you and how you have been able to help her in her grief and try to channel that grief into getting justice for Stephen. It really shows when we stop to understand people and the situations that they're coming from. You can really make a huge difference when we're not spending so much time judging people based on appearances.
Yeah, and just like getting to know them. People have criticized me for being too close to Sandy, but I'm only in this because I care about her so much. And like, it wouldn't have been worth everything if I didn't care about her so much. And if I didn't truly want justice for Stephen. And I was just on the phone with her a couple hours ago, and she is so sweet. She was talking about the GoFundMe, and she's so happy about it. She's so excited. She's
That's
like, her spirits are really high. But of course, Sandy being Sandy, the sweetest person that I know, is I was just talking to the family about what we're going to do with the leftover money after we get his body exhumed. And she wants to start a scholarship for students who were like Stephen. And she said Stephen always had trouble paying for his books.
Oh my gosh. She's so wonderful.
She really, and she was like, I remember how hard that was on him and how he was just trying to go to school and how he had a workbook that was $250. And I mean, things like that she's just constantly always thinking of not only her son, but more people. And just like, that's what Stephen would want.
I want to know that, that your mom would keep on fighting for you years and years and years after your death. I mean, she's just such a great mom.
She really is. And she's also so funny. She's one of the funniest. Like, we laugh all the time on the phone. Because again, like, you're either laughing or crying. Sandy knows that. But like, yeah, she's just, it's so inspiring how she's not only in talk about people who have been gaslit. Sandy Smith has been gaslit for so many. Like, she was the first one in that case to be like, something is really wrong and no one's calling me back and no one is helping me and something is wrong here and somebody please listen to me. And all these people turned their backs on her, and now she's seeing all these people that turn their backs on her. What are they doing? They're right in front of the camera being like, I was at that investigation.
They want a piece of her story.
They do. They want the 15 minutes, and it's just crazy.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, thank goodness for the attention that the story's getting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's helping, and she knows that, and it's giving momentum. And I mean, she knows that there's downsides. She doesn't get on Facebook. I don't get on Twitter. Like, we both have our like, I mean, I do get on Twitter, but occasionally, like, we both have like built up different walls because I mean, she has talk about like a victim who's been re-victimized over and over and over again, and people have spoken for her and completely misunderstood her so many times, and it's horrible. It's horrible. But I hope that like, I was talking to her earlier and talking to Liz and Eric about this, there needs to be more victims advocates. Not only that, but like more go-between for somebody like Sandy and SLED, right? That's like more of a communicator role that's advocates for the victim, obviously, but just keeps the communication going and just keeps at least lets her know, like, hey, we interviewed 7 people this month. We're doing this, we're doing that. Like, we haven't forgot about it. Right. And I think a lot of police departments just forget that part is so important.
A sheriff's department, an entire county may have just 1 or 2 victim advocates, and they're going to bond hearing, they're handling so much stuff. And if those turnover is really high in victim advocacy roles. So you might have someone who's brand new they might not even understand the system itself. You've got to have people that really understand the system and understand the intricacies and can explain that and bridge that gap. Because once that gap between, law enforcement and a victim is broken, it's nearly impossible to get it back. And, the worst thing I can think of is a victim hearing information from anyone but law enforcement. And it happens all the time.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, it does happen all the time, and like, I can't tell you how many times I've broken news to victims. Like, I just want to tell you before the story gets out, and wanted to, like, I'm not calling for quotes or anything. I'm just calling so these people aren't blindsided. But yeah, it's terrible. Like, nobody stops to think of it. And of like, this person's life is probably going to turn upside down because this is going to be in the news today. Like, maybe something in journalism too that people don't think about a lot. Like, I am never aggressive to try to get a name when there's a death to try to get the person's name out there. Like, I always am like triple check with the coroner that the next of kin has been notified. Because I've seen situations where reporters have leaked it, and or reporters have like snuck onto scenes and seen the bot and like it's crazy. And it's like, and so somebody has to find out through a news story that their loved one died. Like, that's horrible.
It's disgusting.
And like, for what for? You got a dumb scoop on just a car accident? Like, who cares? And you just were horrible to someone. Was that worth it?
I can sure help y'all understand things about the law, but financial planning, I have no idea. Jennifer Blanchard, a financial planner, specializes in holistic financial planning for business owners, individuals, and families, and handles insurance planning and investment management. Jennifer is smart, driven, and can help you understand the most complex of things in the financial world, from retirement planning and college savings to risk management and estate planning. Reach out to Jennifer today for a consultation to get your financial life in order. Give her a call at 803-308-2300 or visit her website at www.commonwealthfg.com.
Several years ago, there was a murder in Rock Hill, and I knew about it because their neighbor was like on Nextdoor, and I was like texting you. And then the next day we saw where some reporter was like knocking on the car window of like one of the survivors, and you were like, that's horrible. Like, I don't know why they do that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, just like, and then they like stuck their camera in their face, and I was just like, gosh, don't do that. Like,
survivors in that murder.
And what are you going to get from that? Like, that's the thing that a lot of like legacy news organizations do the same stuff all the time. Like, they have press conferences and they yell out like, Alex Murdaugh, did you kill your wife and son?
Like,
whatever.
Be like, oh,
right.
Now that you asked me, yes.
Let me stop.
Hello, miss. I don't know if they actually did that, but reporters do that stuff.
But yeah,
it's just like,
they do.
I got criticized. Talk about like stupid stuff that I got criticized. I got criticized for I had to share an elevator with Russell Laffitte a couple times in the Laffitte trial. It was just we ended up not sharing the elevator and like running in because it was the federal courthouse.
You went to the stage.
You can't go up the stairs, and it's like a really weird situation, but Russell was right behind us. So we were like, close. It's just weird. And like, I don't have any, anyways, I like tweeted how ridiculous that scenario was. And people were criticizing me and saying I wasn't a real reporter because I didn't badger him because I didn't like ask him questions in the elevator. Like, Russell, did you do it?
Right.
Like, what do I have to ask him? It's just stupid.
Tired of that.
It doesn't get anywhere. Like, Russell's just gonna say no comment, and that's just and you're gonna look foolish, and that's just a waste of energy and time. Like, who does that?
It's so weird because so often, you have to think, like, what is the cost of this for me versus the benefit? But people aren't thinking about that, particularly with victims, like the benefit of getting that scoop out there versus the harm this person is going to have forever. And is it worth it? And I really appreciate you saying that. I mean, already like huge fan, but like seriously, I wish more people had that attitude because it's not, it's literally, life and death for these victims. And, for so many reporters, they're going to be on to something tomorrow and not going to be worried about that. But this person is going to have to deal with it for the rest of their life. And it's,
right.
Yeah.
But there's also,
and that highlights the difference in your style of journalism. It's different than legacy media. Yeah. Can you talk about that? Because I think you do get some people who just don't understand your style and your approach, I think.
Well, I think everybody kind of wants to label something and put it into a box of like, this is a journalist, this is a lawyer, and this is what a lawyer should look like. This is what and if you're out of that box, they just freak out. And I've been out of that box for a long time, and they've been freaking out for a long time. But what I found is a lot of people are really itching for more people to be outside of that box because they're tired of it. And it's not really effective. Like, and I just wanted to, like what Sarah was saying, not only if you think about the victims and if you put them first and just put just a little decency of giving them a phone call before this big story breaks about them. That stuff goes a really long way. And not only you're not hurting this person and you don't have to deal with that, but that person will trust you and they will tell you things, and it's worth it 1,000,000%, not only to be the better person, but it makes you a better reporter. And you end up understanding. I mean, there's no way that I could have understood the Murdaugh story without the sources and the trust that I gained from these people. And that was for like, a lot of times I would hold off on news and I'd be like, I have to call this person before I break this because this is important and I need to make that step. But those steps really, really mattered. And also your sources will tell other sources that you're trustworthy and that you're not a horrible person. And that goes a long way. One source would be like, so-and-so told me blah, 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 and that I should call you about that. And yeah, extremely helpful in a community like Hampton that is so tight-knit and is so they're not reluctant at all to outsiders. I wouldn't say that, but it's just I don't blame them for being protective of their community and not wanting reporters badgering them. And I was lucky that I had a couple years of sources under my belt to connect with the people when the murders happened and figuring out what was going on. But that's the kind of stuff that's just like multi-layers and context, and it takes time, it takes commitment, it takes relationship building, but also just being a decent human. And I can't stress that enough. People would have just cut me off and I wouldn't have gotten any information if I was awful.
Right. With legacy media, when they helicoptered in from, parts unknown, and they just expected the people of Hampton to just trust them and be excited to talk to them. But is that, and then they would call you and ask you to like share all your work with them so they could take credit, right?
And they thought so-and-so, like, I got the same, I called it country bumpkin treatment because there was all of these people from New York all of a sudden. They were always from New York every single time. I don't even think there was a single, I swear to God, every person I talked to for like 2 months was from Brooklyn. And and a couple of them would say, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm like, I know where Brooklyn is. Like,
New York.
I'm an idiot.
From Paris, France.
Yeah. I'm like, New York,
across
New York.
The ocean, y'all? What?
Just country bumpkin. I call it country bumpkining because it was just like they treat you like just because you live in a place that's not New York or LA, that you are just lesser on the totem pole, and that you want to live a life in New York City and that you dream of all like. Oh, I will never forget. I was thinking about this today. A news program was trying to like buy rights to all my stuff, and they gave me they offered me like $2,000 for all of my materials. I think they wanted rights to the podcast. It was something ridiculous.
I had a physical reaction to that. I was like, what?
It was bad. And that was when I like didn't, I did not know anything about money at the time or anything, but David was like, that is way too low. Thank God he was there. And because I was like, I don't know, maybe it's just
How things
that's
work.
what they do. But this woman on the phone was trying to be like, this other girl, she was a small town reporter in Texas, and she didn't have a Southern accent, but like this other girl had she was a small town reporter in Texas, and now she's a producer in New York City.
No.
And you could be like that. And it's like,
Cool. Thanks.
that's how they talk to you. Like they literally, and it's just really frustrating and hard and it's also hard to a lot of these people that like, they come from this place assuming that you just want to be on their stupid show and that you just want your face on TV. And it's like, I'm not like that. I don't care about that.
But so many
people
people
yell at me all the
are.
time. Yeah, but it's like people also don't understand that there's a huge, huge downside to whatever fame, whatever you want to call it. Like, if you have a following, there's a huge, like, there's people criticizing you constantly. That is not fun. People act like, oh, you're like being famous is just all cool, and it's not. It's not at all. It's just more people yelling at you and criticizing you all the time, and like it's weird when like people. I'm an introvert, so like when people come up to me in public, I'm super awkward about it. It makes me. I'm very thankful for that. They're always so sweet and kind, but I'm also just so like, it makes me nervous. It makes me uncomfortable. It is not something I'm cut out for. It is not something that I've wanted with my life. It just sort of happened. And a lot of people have this idea of fame that's just so different from what it actually is. It's just a lot of, if you're not a narcissist who's just completely obsessed with themselves and loves all that stuff, then it's just very, very uncomfortable a lot of times. And I don't want to complain because I'm sure that sounds ridiculous, but it's just not
honest though. Like that's the way it is.
But I think you're right. A lot of people assume that you define success the same way they define success.
Right.
And we've had that conversation that they come at you with like these promises of success under their definition, thinking that you're going to be so excited because they know they would be.
Yeah, but a lot of the people that were just awful to me and tried to bully me and talk down to me, and I didn't think I was like better than them or anything at the time, but just thought that I deserved more respect. I have a way bigger following than all of them. At this point, and it's just so funny because it's like you treated me like that then, and so I'm gonna call you out on it now because like I'm a person that it's like if you treat waitresses badly, then you're just a bad person. Like that's just who you are. You treated me badly when I was a nobody, so you're probably treating other people badly now, and you probably should stop that. So
respect goes a long way.
It does,
it
does, and just decency. Just be be nice. Be a decent person, not even a super nice person, but just like,
just maybe don't be an overt asshole. Is like a really good like standard. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what I've come away with. This, like if they're just the line of decency.
Right,
like so achievable yet so few.
So many of us can make it, you guys.
You can do it. Just like, don't send that tweet. Just erase that email.
Just stop it.
The tweets that start with "you need to so and so and so." It's like, no, I know what I need. It just
and Sarah and I have think we've talked about this, one of you, like or tweeted, like the amount of people don't say that stuff to men. I don't care.
No,
there needs
they
to
don't.
be a study to confirm this of some
with
sort.
all due
Right.
respect, with all due respect to you all, like I made myself
You're right,
stop for
right.
an email. I got an email like that last week, and I made myself wait till the next day to respond. And I addressed, "Sir, no, don't ever address
Don't.
me or anyone else with all due respect." But you're right. It's not that it's men want to use it towards women, but see, now I'm getting like,
And I mean, some women do it too. I've gotten lots of, "Hey, just wanted you to know," blah, blah, and it's like, well,
Right.
and then that's
I'm
followed
sure
by
you'll
an
appreciate-
insult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like I just don't think that. I feel like with women, there's a deep feeling going on there. They feel like they can talk down to us, or they feel like but with men, it's like I would to think of like just being a random person and emailing I'm trying to think of
Somebody you
just
actually know, and
right, somebody,
who's
but a
putting
man,
on-
like, but they don't do that
Oh,
to men.
yeah.
Like they
Right.
don't,
No.
not as much as because I just feel like it's also like little girls, like they feel like we're little girls that they want to coach and they want to it's like I'm not that.
when
Yeah,
a little
and-
girl is more successful than you are. Can y'all hear me?
But you're doing such a great job. You know, it's like,
But yeah, I think I'm a really big fan. I get that all
Yeah.
the time. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
I feel like I'm always like, what is wrong with these people? Like, what is wrong? But also,
I think it's because they do look at like a lot of younger women as little girls, and then when the little girl is more successful than them, that's really got to get to them. Like even more so than a peer, somebody that they think of as their peer surpasses them. When somebody that they think of as younger or less experienced or whatever label they want to put on surpasses them in their own careers or in their own desires for themselves, they're going to lash out a lot of people.
right, when instead it's like maybe you should learn from what that person is doing differently from you, and maybe you should just like take a few pointers instead, just be mad.
Or be happy that something good is happening for somebody else, you know?
Right.
That kill you to, you know, what's for you will find you. And
Right.
what's for Mandy Matney is not for you. It's for her.
Right.
You know, put positive energy out there and maybe your time will come. But don't be like mad.
But if you're just going to be angry on the internet all the time, that's not going to get you where you want to be. So
No, that's not going to get you to your goals.
definitely not.
I don't. Thank you so much for being
This
here.
has been great.
Thanks to Jennifer Blanchard for sponsoring this episode of Palmetto Primetime. You can reach Jennifer at 803-308-2300 by email at jennifer.blanchard@commonwealthfg.com or on her website, www.commonwealthfg.com. Jennifer is a registered representative and investment advisor representative of Securian Financial Services, Inc., securities and investment advisory services offered through Securian Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Commonwealth Financial Group is independently owned and operated.
We look forward to producing podcasts weekly. And if you have any topic ideas, please feel free to contact us on social media at Palm Primetime on Instagram and Twitter. You can find Palmetto Primetime on any platform you listen to your favorite podcasts, so be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay connected, and give us a 5-star review if you like what you're hearing. Thanks so much for listening.